If we started?
I don't know, man. I guess. I kind of want to stop now after that fucking fuck around, you know? Welcome to the Chaz Palmer Williams podcast. It's a series where I talk with the prominent members of the largely, I would say, overlooked 2000s British DIY punk scene. Just about their memories around that time, and I just tried to figure out what it was that made it so special that time, and what different people's sort of experiences were, and how the ripples we created in that small sort of pond are still visible today in the wider world of music. Today I'm talking to Matthew Reynolds. He rose to prominence. He was the lead singer and guitarist for a band called Howard's Alias. They were a dark, kind of jagged, intricate, very dynamic band, and they were very, very different compared to a lot of the bands around at that time. Very dark, very moody, I don't know, very deep. So that sort of was a great contradiction to a lot of the sort of happy sort of ska that was around at the time. Their debut album was The Chameleon Script. That was released in 2002, and it was on a Welsh label, a one-man DIY label called Good Clean Fun. That then caught the eye of a London-based DIY label called Household Name Records that was very instrumental in the success of a lot of those bands in that scene. Bands like, you know, Lightyear, Cap Down, and we discussed those bands at length in this episode. Also, we talk about the important bands of the time and what Howard's Alias put out. So the answer is Never, Beat Heartbeat in quick succession, 2004 and 2005. After breaking up in 2005, the band reformed and self-released their swan song album, Epiphanic, in 2008, completing a relatively short but very, very influential career on the British DIY circuit. But the thing is, for how small a time it was, there was hundreds and hundreds of shows they booked by legendary DIY agent Ian Armstrong, a man to whom the concepts of logistics, geographical distance and physical and mental exhaustion were potentially a challenge that he did not recognise, and he just got to it, full DIY style. In this episode, we discuss all that, as well as Matt's musical projects like Thinkpol, Skylar, Drawings, Big Finn, David Ransom and Salem, as well as his career in the international international touring guitar technician with very, very large bands. And he works with someone now that we can't say who it is because he's had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. There's a lot of deep chat in there as well about the sort of diagnosis of neurological conditions and techniques to deal with these that we sort of figured out between us, and very sort of over-eager maybe music fans, but then becoming that over-eager music fan yourself, learning to love ska again, and just Matt's just absolute wizardry on guitar. Then we relate a little bit to growing up on a council estate as well. That's great. I really enjoyed the chat. Went on for ages, but just didn't feel like that at all. Remember that you can support this podcast by subscribing to our Patreon for £5 a month, in return for which you'll get the full unedited recordings. This ran to 2.5 hours, this one. So if you're a full nerd, you can get that full 2.5 hours unedited, and a load of other bonus material we're doing soon related to Lightyear, the scene more broadly, and everything else. So your subscription really helps us to keep this podcast going and turn into something much bigger over a broader time. So really appreciate every single subscriber. Alternatively, for absolutely nothing, you can do a huge favour just by subscribing to us and then leave a rating and a review. It just takes a few seconds. And also, it would be awesome if you just tell your mates about this, because we're going to give this a really good crack. Lastly, any questions from listeners are really welcome, whether for me or for Matt or any future guests. In the spirit of DIY, I want you to just be an active part of this. It would be great, and just get involved with those discussions. Anyway, enough of that chat. Enjoy the episode. And my kids have got to go to a fucking kids party in a minute, which is like an absolute nightmare. I've started now with kids parties. I go to them, I put on my noise cancelling headphones, and I just read a Kindle. And I don't interact with other parents. I don't, and I feel like that would be your style,
mate.
You know?
I just went on a holiday to Corfu, and the whole time my girlfriend is reading books and listening to music, and I'm just sat with headphones in, noise cancelling on, no music playing, just staring, just turning off.
You've been on a staring holiday.
Yeah. It was lovely as well, yeah.
I feel like you're really good at that, as in, and it's a delicate subject, this. And I don't know if we started or not. So it's up to Pete to edit it out or whatever. It's up to that bad boy now. But let's out an industry secret, okay?
Love to.
Let's out the term Punisher.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dangerous territory, but because I feel like you could come across as not being, or I could come across as not being very grateful, whatever. So I'm gonna explain what Punisher is very quickly for people who may not know. So, and I don't know if you might know this, but the term Punisher came from the band Frenzal Rhomb.
I didn't know that. I thought it came from you.
No, we got it from Frenzal Rhomb, and they invented it. And this term has crossed industry genres as well. So
yeah, everyone uses it now.
They invented it, I believe. I know. I mean, I'm like 99% sure they invented it. They told me that, but I mean,
it makes sense.
I guess yeah. I mean, but they are kind of wind-up merchants, so maybe but this doesn't even sound like a wind-up. So basically, they were on tour. And there was a chap, and I feel bad now because I'm outing this guy as a Punisher, but he was the OG Punisher. So they would be on tour, and then someone would be like, "Oh, where's Lindsay?" And someone would be like, "Oh, he's getting punished." And the term came from a guy who wore a Punisher T-shirt with the Punisher on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he would talk at the band, and I think obviously it's just when people get super excited, they're like,
yeah.
And I fucking do it. I've done it loads of times, me too, when I was younger. To
really embarrassing.
To bands, like, I mean, I always gone about the Hold Steady. If I met, the singer from the Hold Steady, I'd be like, I'd either, break down and not speak or fucking punish him,
Yeah.
So basically, punishing is where you talk at somebody about themselves or their band, and don't listen to what they're saying in return. So they may say, "Oh, are you in a band?" Yeah, I was in a band, like last week. But the second album that you wrote, that one line is, and it's awesome. But it's really hard to sort of communicate with people like that, especially when you've just come off stage. And I feel like I'm being an arsehole now. I feel like I'm really...
You're not, though. The thing is, it is really uncomfortable. Yeah, it's not about being ungrateful for people liking your shit or whatever, but it's just... Oh, God, as someone who's not comfortable in lots of social situations, that is awful. You're just hearing, when it's like, so when you were writing this specific line, you were thinking this, weren't you? And it's, no, I wasn't. I was just thinking.
But I do that with the weaker ends. You know what I mean? I'd be like, John K. Sampson was thinking about, his cat snowboarding in that line or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I always going about this, but and obviously people are probably, a bit fatigued about hearing about, ADHD and autism and stuff. But I was diagnosed with ADHD about 5 years ago. And I think, this guy was like, I think you're on the autistic spectrum. So part of touring, I think being on that sort of neurodiversity and all that was afterwards or during that, I found it so difficult to constantly interact with people, saying the same thing, or even just in general being around humans. I found it so difficult. Now I feel like what you were really good at was guarding that aspect of your your sort of mental health time. You could just be like, I'm just not engaging sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you would see it that way because I really struggled with it back then. And I mean, it's interesting talking about autism and that kind of stuff. I'm in the process of getting an autism diagnosis.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. Which comes as a surprise to absolutely no one.
Yeah, and it's kind of sucks in a way because and it's the same with me with ADHD. When I've said that, people are like, "Oh, really?"
I've definitely had a few people sort of react in a kind of what you didn't know that kind of way, and Yeah, I didn't, unfortunately. Yeah.
But I think it does suck. I mean, with everything aside, the fact that it's a nightmare living these things, and people are like, oh, you've got a great superpower, and I think you're incredibly talented on many levels, but and that does come with these things. But also, it would be great not to have to fucking struggle so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, with that whole thing, and going back to your question, it kind of like it that makes a lot of sense to me now. Because at the time, I felt like I struggled so much to talk to people. And like outside of the dressing room, when it was just, we're touring with Lightyear or whatever, I loved chatting to everyone and like getting into in-depth conversations, all that kind of stuff. Loved that, but I hated going into the venue and having to speak to people. Because I always felt like people would have this expectation of me that they weren't going to get, because that's not
same.
Because that's not who I am. Obviously, in your songs, you're just kind of, and I think particularly with me, but with you as well, you're an exaggerated version of who you are in real life. I think if someone, especially back then, listened to my songs, they'd assume I was this sort of depressed, doom and gloom guy, whereas most of the time I'm just fucking around and taking the piss constantly. Do you know what I mean? That's my default. It's just humor. But the punishing thing was like, I took it very literally. It felt like I'm actually being punished for something that I'd done.
Yeah.
And not that isn't to blame anyone who likes my music or, but I guess it's nowadays we have this kind of vernacular around mental health, neurodiversity, all these kind of things that are really present at the moment, that we were able to have a way to describe what we were experiencing then. And I don't think we were necessarily able to just like, we definitely, when I first met you, we became pals or whatever. We weren't discussing our mental health or the prospect of neurodiversity or anything.
I don't know anyone that was doing that.
Yeah, and so for me, I felt, especially as I was kind of singing about that kind of stuff, I felt a lot of kind of distance from even our peers a lot of the time. There was certain bands that I really clicked with. You guys were one of them, Captain Everything, No Comply. But then some bands I felt a distance with, and I think that was just, now I can see it was just in my own head that I felt like for some reason I felt othered by them or sort of a distance from them. And the autism thing is now kind of trying to process what that means for my previous, from my past life, and how I'm going to move forward.
Yeah. Because there's all that hindsight stuff, isn't there? Where you're just like, I don't know. I mean, I look back a lot of the time and I feel really guilty, for stuff I've done spontaneously, like, and with us, it's like, I mean, I remember we went to this party and then we got back and the pub gates were locked. And I was like, I can drive through the gates in our new Sprinter, like the A-Team,
Okay.
And everyone's like, yeah, whatever. So, and I didn't have a driver's license. And I got in the van and just drove towards the thing. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it, and drove through the gates like the A-Team. But the gates didn't break where the lock was like they do in the films, and it just pulled a large section of the pub down onto the top of the van. And then I just drove off up the street in second gear as fast as I could, and then stopped and was really like, fucking hell, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And I think, Led Zeppelin or, I drove, they drove a car into a swimming pool. I think young people nowadays, they're just like, oh, that's kind of shit. That's a bit lame. Like when we were growing up, it's like, oh, that's so hilarious. And I just think young people now are just like, why would you want to do that? I think I have a lot of sort of regret and guilt around those types of spontaneity. Do you know what I mean? And I think that it's interesting how you talk about that side of autism, where you felt distanced, or I don't know if you feel guilt like that. That might be the same, but the fact you sometimes think about it and maybe analyze it. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just it's a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that stuff, I don't really necessarily feel guilty. Like, with all due respect, there's the kinds of things that most bands would do when they were pissed, and then there's Lightyear. Do you know?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
We were definitely we like getting into mischief. Absolutely. Particularly me and Nick would love getting into mischief. But in a way, I guess we were kind of inspired by Lightyear in that way, it brought out that side of us that liked the mischief and the chaos of it all. But
I don't know, man. It was fucking fun. Yeah, I think that's an ADHD thing, is guilt and, over processing and not having enough button in your brain. That comes across, I guess, in my lyrics, and your stuff comes across in your lyrics, and
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny because lately, when I was on holiday, actually, because I was texting you whilst I was on holidays because I listened to the podcast for the first time, and it sort of made me go back and listen to a bunch of stuff I haven't listened to in 2 decades. And I don't know if I was necessarily totally aware of it at the time, but I mean, there isn't anyone else that could have written your lyrics. It's so much you, and it really speaks of your personality. And I guess it comes back around to this Punisher thing, but it's like, it's so you. It couldn't be anyone else.
You're now punishing me, Matt.
I am punishing you a bit, yeah. I think you need a bit of punishment sometimes.
Oh, man.
I think you're a bit too... don't get me wrong, I fucking love it when people tell me I'm great. It's great. Of course, it feels great, man. But whereas you're a bit like, oh, don't tell me I'm great. I feel like you have this thing of I don't know, perhaps I'm going to go too deep now. I've always taken the way that you are as that you're almost a bit like, I've just thrown this together. This isn't like proper art. Whereas,
I do absolutely feel like that.
But whereas for me, it's like I've had a conversation with Pete Fraser about this years ago when we were making your solo record. For me, you're like Mike Skinner or someone. You're kind of a.
I can't explain how uncomfortable this makes me.
Yeah,
feel.
well, I'm doing it. So fucking buckle in, boy. Yeah, I've always thought that you're this kind of, because Lightyear, I'm not I'm not weird about saying it. I cried at Lightyear gigs a bunch of times watching you play, particularly the second record.
That bad? No, out of tune?
It was just there were so many songs that around that time we'd had conversations or in speaking like that. I kind of knew what some of the bits where the songs were about, or like just in talking to you at the time about where your life was at and all that kind of stuff. And just some of it just really touched me. I thought it was so poetic, but in this way that is so British and touches on pop culture and all of those kind of things that you do all the time, that it's just so unique and great. But I always felt like Lightyear was kind of, this is just punishing you now, mate.
It is
Lightyear. I always felt like Lightyear kind of had this reputation as being a bit of a stupid band.
Yeah.
But because you're fucking pissing on each other or whatever. But that was a bit of it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't it.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think with Howard's Alias, it's like, the dark, side of ska, I think that was what was so amazingly unique about you guys. And I felt like you were kind of doing that as well, but you were almost like on the other side of the spectrum, as in, not spectrum, that's the wrong choice of words, but but I mean like, you were like the very quite overtly dark and, I am fucking dealing with my shit here, and that really appealed to me. It was like, again, do you know the Blue Meanies,
Yeah, I loved them.
So I feel like they were quite dark like that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's loads of other ska bands that I know of that are like that. I love that. Because also, if you think about that, man, if you think of the heritage of ska, if you go back through that, Matt, and I'm kind of turning the punishing back on you, and I'm actually surprised how serious this conversation is from you, and you're considering how many conversations we've had that are very silly, to turn that back on you a bit. Like, in that family tree of ska in the UK, yeah? And ska purists would hate me for saying that we're related to Two Tone or whatever, but on a global scale,
we fucking were though. That's 100%. Yeah,
we were
massively. Yeah.
And you may not like the way that wave of ska went or whatever, but on a global, and obviously we were influenced by US ska, hugely.
Mm-hmm.
But on a UK level, name another band, that kind of went like that before you. I don't think there was one.
I don't know. I think there are a bunch of bands kind of doing the same thing, but it just all sounded different.
This is like Punisher chess. It's like you give me one and I send one back.
Good move. Now I wonder how I can turn this around.
For me, it was like, I remember seeing you on stage sometimes, man. And I'll be totally honest with you, Matt. There was definitely times where I was worried about your mental health on tour. Like I was genuinely like, he's really. I was struggling, but I don't think I realised I was struggling. But I felt as though you were struggling on the stage and off stage, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because your performances were incredible. It was, they were very emotive and honest, and you're one of my favourite front persons to watch on stage, actually.
Oh, thanks, man.
With the way your demeanour is, and I feel like I shouldn't tell you this because I feel like it may spoil it for next time because you'll be thinking about it. But I love how I feel like you're very honest. Like you're very deadpan. You're very like who you are almost on stage as well. And I think that, like you said, it's an exaggerated version, but I just feel like you're honest. Like if someone says something, you're going to say something back very honest. You're not going to put that filter through. Whereas I would filter. Like if someone said like a shouted out and it was like a bit of an asshole comment that made them look like an asshole, I probably wouldn't launch on that. I'd just like laugh or something, whereas you would be like, you'd probably shut them down very, very quickly in like kind of like not a mean way, but like, a fine line between like, destroying them, but like also not and including them still in the audience. So you're very good at that. So it's interesting when we talk about, that family tree of ska where you guys sat in that. Because I think you were a bit more important than you think you were.
It's funny because as I've gotten older, the ska thing, when I first heard ska, it was like Madness and the Specials and stuff like that, but I wasn't really aware that was what ska music was. I was a kid. But now, like 25 years on from being in a band and in that scene and stuff, there's a direct lineage there between, I think, particularly the Specials and lots of music that came after that. For us especially, probably the Specials were a bigger one because it was a lot darker and sort of talking about Britain at that time and talking about emotions and society and that kind of stuff in a way that I don't think American bands did as much.
Yeah.
There was definitely bands who would sing about politics and that kind of stuff.
Your cat's ass just went right in the camera. In this
She's
serious
got a lovely
moment.
little hiney.
Well, it was great.
And, but yeah, like for me, in terms of that lineage, Cap Down, I heard you and Cap Down around the same time. And it was like two sides of this coin that at the time because when Howard's Alias started, Murphy, do you remember Murphy?
Yeah.
So Murphy was the driving force of it being like a ska band. And I kind of...
Oh, right. Wow.
So we were in the same school. He left school and went to a college, and I stayed at school and went to sixth form. So I didn't really meet anyone new or do anything new. I just still did my thing, just listening to punk music and skateboarding all day. I didn't want to go and meet new people. Autism. But Murphy went to this college and met loads of new people and got into like ska punk, and he'd be playing me these records, and it was like Less Than Jake and Real Big Fish and that kind of stuff. And of course I really liked it, but I wasn't really that interested in playing that kind of music. I wanted to be in a kind of, I don't know, like a metal band or an indie band, or so. I was really into Pavement and Weezer and like System of a Down and bands like that. So I wanted to do stuff like that, but I just kind of did it because that's what Murphy wanted to do, and I don't know, that's what we did. When I first heard you in Cap Down, it was like we'd maybe played a few gigs at that point, and so I was still kind of getting into ska punk, and it was like, oh, I can do that, but it can be British. I mean that in the nicest way possible, not in a fucking Tommy Two Names sort of right-wing fascist way. It was like, oh, it reminded me of like Blur or bands like that were so British but cool. It wasn't like kitschy or anything like that. It was just kind of really fun, but really and obviously Lightyear were kind of much more fun than Capdown. But as I said, that's why I kind of viewed it as two sides of the same coin. It was like, but Capdown, I think, were probably much more of that lineage, that direct lineage of the Specials and
definitely.
like the Selector, Body Snatchers, all of that kind of thing, and this like dark punk ska thing.
Man, I'm saying this every month, but it's like I want to get someone from Capdown on, and
you really need to, like, those guys.
I don't think they'll do it, man. Because were you with me when I started to call Jake in the middle of the night and stuff?
Yeah, I was there.
That's probably why he's definitely not going to go on.
I mean, and the thing is,
ADHD.
Here's the thing. I mean, for listeners, I don't know how much of a kind of, I don't know, poking of the hornet's nest this is for you, Chaz, but I think there was always kind of a distance between Capdown and Lightyear. And I felt like perhaps you both wanted to put that distance there. And I don't know why, because for everyone, all the other bands, everyone else was so in awe of you both.
We sometimes barely thought we still don't think that we're a proper band. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but that I guess that sort of self-deprecating kind of like thing runs through every member of Lightyear pretty much, except for Nelb. I think Nelb's just like, I'm the fucking best in the coolest way because he's the nicest guy in the world. But we never ever thought that we could have had a career doing that. Capdown definitely did and deserved to. And they, as you may guess, like to smoke weed, and we like to just sit around the dressing room naked and do things like that because we all got bored, and so when we got bored, we would do those things. And I remember there was a time at Manchester, what was that venue called, the Grapes or something, at the uni? And I remember Boob came in to the dressing room, and there was something that I absolutely can't repeat on the podcast going on. And it was extreme, put it that way. And he was just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And then just went in to get a beer out of the shared fridge, and all of us had stashed our beers, so we'd gone in, and this is the problem of touring with a ska band, isn't it? Especially like a bunch of cunts like us. We'd gone in and stashed all our beers, so we dedicated a certain amount of beers per person, and they just went. I think there was that, but I think with Jake as well, like me and Jake are so different, we're so different. And I think Jake, is one of the best front people I've ever seen in a band as well, and I think this is what's so interesting about this era of music is there's so many great front people because they toured their arse off and they became great front people, and it's like, I think that's what we were seeing as well, and I don't think it's something we've touched upon in this podcast. It was like everyone was learning their chops on tour because we were touring so much.
Yeah,
we guitar, drums, whatever. You were learning your craft to a fucking high level, and I think that's why a lot of people moved on to be working in the industry like yourself, like guitar techs. Or I think if you imagine that was a learning ground, I think it's pretty impressive. But just to go back to it, I think because of, again, courting Jake all those times, like on stage, like I just don't think he'll speak to me. But I'm gonna say, dude, like, please come on, because it would. It'd be the longest conversation we'd ever had.
I think it'd be. As a fan, I would love to hear it because, like, knowing you both, I definitely know you better than I know Jake. But Jake's always been lovely to me and has always been really warm. And I saw him probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. His kid, so for the listeners, I used to work with this band Creeper, and his kid was into Creeper. And I saw him at Slam Dunk Festival. He was kind of like, I hate to ask, but would you be able to get the guys to come and say hello to my lads?
That's amazing, man. That's so
cool. It was like, for me, it was like, this is like the honour of a life. I'm like, there's Jake from Capdown. I'm getting his grown kid. I think his kid was like 15 or 16 at the time.
Yeah, it's got to be older now.
Like getting him to, doing something for him, and which I don't know, it was just this kind of cool moment. I guess for me back then, Capdown and Lightyear kind of represented the two sides of who I was. Like, I wanted to be serious and taken seriously as a songwriter and all of those kind of things. But then, as we already touched on earlier, like massive part of my personality is just fucking around. But I feel like those two bands are kind of so important for this whole scene because firstly, it wouldn't have happened without them. And I do think King Prawn as well, to a lesser extent, perhaps. I think there's also that thing that at the time, it doesn't seem like that big a deal right now. Looking back, it looks like the same scene. But because they were involved with Moonscar, it was kind of a different thing.
A little bit,
At least for us, it seemed like a different kind of scene. We wanted to be part of the
definitely
kind of household name scene.
Yeah.
And almost not part of the Moonscar scene.
You know what would be really cool if somebody could do a family tree of all this shit, you know? Because you've got things like Crackle Records, you know? So like Chopper, Crocodile Tears, you know, like then you've got like, you know, all the Out of Step people in Leeds, you know, with like One Car Pile Up and, you know, Proper Gumbies and you know, then you've got, I guess, Vanilla Pod. They straddled over all of that and then carried on into Household Name Records and Det Cheese and all that. And, you know, and those could be traced back before that because certain people would be like, well, you know, this shit happened way before what you guys are talking about. And it's still happening now, way after, you know. So, but it would be really, really cool to do that little family tree and how they're all related, you know.
Yeah, 100%. But I think it, you Capdown need to come on this podcast because it'd be like a meeting of the minds. I think
this podcast, it's so weird because I just feel like it's so niche. Like we're talking like this and it's so fucking niche, but it's not that niche if you think of the like hundreds of thousands of people that probably went to the gigs, you know. So actually it's probably not as niche as I think, but on a global scale, you know, all these bands and stuff, it's just like, it must just sound like gobbledygook or, you know, like, I don't know, it's so weird, but I feel like there's certain US bands as well that kind of dip their toe into it or were, you know, honorary members as well. So obviously like Big D, The Kids Table, Slow Gherkin, but then I guess obviously Link 80, you know, we haven't spoken about Link 80 and that they had a fucking impact on us as well. Like huge, you know, the hardcore element and stuff.
Yeah, man, for me, Link 80... They were the first band that we toured with.
Oh, really? They were the first band you ever toured with?
The first band we ever toured with, yeah. So we went to... It's interesting that you mentioned Big D as well, because we played maybe like we played a show with Big D, and I was chatting to... I can't remember which male. I think it was their old trumpet player, about like touring and how do you start touring and all that, because it wasn't, you know, the internet wasn't what it is now then. So we didn't know how you start touring. And they'd said, oh, well, we're playing in Brighton, I think it was, a couple of weeks later. You should get in touch with this guy. And it was Buzz, who you will know, Chaz.
For sure, yeah.
Buzz was a guy who used to put on shows in Brighton. And so we got in touch with Buzz, and he put us on in Brighton with Big D. And then somehow they put us in touch with Ian Armstrong, who, having listened to the first couple of episodes of this, I know you've already mentioned Ian, but I don't think any of this would have happened without him.
So Ian Armstrong is the agent for who basically was their booking agent for most of the bands in this scene, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things that nowadays people are kind of aware of what a booking agent is. No shade on Ian, but he wasn't like some dude working for a corporation in an office in central London. He was a guy, I think, working out of a spare room in his parents' house in Darlington.
Yeah.
Had been involved in the punk scene since the early 80s. He used to be in a band called Sofa Head. Like this kind of amazing dude. And I've got so much respect for Ian, and I really, really love him. I really sort of hold him in high regard. That's so weird, man.
Like, I think Ian, coincidentally, is, well, not nowadays, but is like Guinness used to be. You know, people would either love Guinness like he did or does, or hate Guinness. Do you know what I mean? Like fucking, I don't drink Guinness. And I think that his way, he had definitely a unique way of talking to people.
Well, he was just straight with people all the time. So people would think he was rude and stuff. But from the very first time I ever emailed him saying, hey, like Big D put me in touch with you. We'd like to play with them in London. And they said to contact you. And he was like, okay, send me a CD. And it was probably literally just, okay, send me a CD and his address. And that was it. And I sent him a demo, and then he got back in touch saying, you're on first, show up at this time. That was it. 50 quid. And we were like, oh, okay.
It's still 50 quid.
Like, amazing. And we'd never played London before. So we were like, this is incredible. So we went and played the show in London.
Was that, who was that with? Link 80 or Big D?
Big D.
Okay. Amazing.
And it was all part of the same tour.
Underworld or?
Yeah, Underworld. Yeah. So we got our trumpet player's dad to hire a van, and we all bundled in and drove, went up there, played the gig, and we were so excited. And we played to 10 people or something. Do you know what I mean? It was like, and 10 people in the Underworld, so it felt awful. But we were stoked to have done it, and we were like, okay, this is great.
At least you had the toilets to cheer you up at the Underworld,
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nice.
I've still got some of those flies, actually. They still live with me. So we played that show, and it was like a December, as I remember. And maybe 2 days afterwards or something like that, I just got an email from Ian saying, Link 80 tour, January next year, 30 dates, 50 quid a night, you in. And it was like, what the fuck, dude? I was like, oh my God. And I'd seen Link 80 2 or 3 times whenever they played Southampton. They came through with Five Knuckle, and they came through with a couple of other people, and was a huge fan, and was really, really. But I remember just saying to the guys, like, is this even real? Like, what is going on? So so of course we said yes and went and did it, and everything was,
I think at that point that to someone of that age feels like the equivalent of like getting on, for us, a major tour. It's like, I guess, like a country artist would feel like getting on an arena tour.
I genuinely thought, we're going to be famous. Like, this is insane.
This is it, boys.
Like, yeah, exactly. This is our big break. Because I'd seen them already playing to a sold-out Joiners or whatever. Of course, at the time, I had no idea about the sort of economics of touring or anything like that. I didn't know anyone else. There weren't any other bands from our city who were touring. There wasn't.
I remember when Lightyear first did not our first tour, because that was ludicrous. Transit vans, someone stole a horse. But on our first proper tour, I remember saying to someone back in Derby, we're going on tour. And they laughed. They said, tour? Like, as in a tour? And I was like, yeah. And even using that word tour felt weird and funny. And like I wasn't authorized to use it, It was almost like that terminology.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Yeah, it's difficult, I think, nowadays, because bands often have their first tour organised before they've ever played a gig.
Yeah.
But back then it was like, yeah, we didn't know any other bands who'd ever toured.
But it wasn't like that.
It wasn't normal to have done that. And yeah, our friends I remember Murphy's college friends and stuff, that people suddenly started talking to us like we were fucking cool all of a sudden, because we were touring, and it was like, wow, you guys must be really making it. Of course.
So where if you fast forward from this, to the largest thing in the music industry that you've been involved in, playing live and also working in the industry, what are those two things?
I went from playing for other people. I guess I don't know what the biggest thing I've done is. I mean, I guess in terms of the amount of people at the show, a couple of big shows with Sam Duckworth, Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly, but it was just Sam Duckworth at the time. We played the show in Southend that there was bloody thousands and thousands of people at. Played Glastonbury with Sam, did a bunch of touring. Later on with Sonic Boom 6, supporting Real Big Fish. That was kind of big.
I think what's interesting is that, like, say touring with Sam, and obviously we need to get Sam on here at some point, but to that schoolboy, that college kid, we got in the van on that first tour, and it feels like it never stopped. I find it fascinating that that kid that you were, getting into that van on the Link 80 tour with the insane amounts of excitement and just like, oh my God, we're going on tour, holy shit. Ending up playing it. And even the way you said that is amazing. You were just like, oh, well, there was thousands of people watching us and Sam and Get Cape or whatever. And it's just, and then you teched, didn't you? You teched on some large shows and guitar tech and everything.
Yeah, so guitar teched for Creeper and Dry the River and Father John Misty.
I guess I'm just trying to collate, I ended up tour managing on tours with bands who were with My Chemical Romance and Paramore and 30 Seconds to Mars, and I just love that idea of we all just got in the van, and then fast forwarding from that point to, if you could just click from getting in that van with Link 80 to being on stage, that would blow your mind, to go
100%.
Hey mate, this is where you're starting, but this is where you're going to end up.
Also, you must have come across this as well. I came across it loads when I was working with Creeper, because I was their guitar tech for a couple of years and then became their tour manager as well. And we would just come across people all because it was kind of, they were like a punk band, so it was kind of vaguely they're on that route somewhere as well. They all grew up Cap Down and Lightyear fans, And
I think I saw the singer. Apologies, I don't really know him or his name, but I think he came to watch Lightyear at Manchester Punk Festival, and I was like, "Is that the guy from Creeper?" And I was a bit like,
"Yeah, he probably would have.
We might be slightly cool."
Yeah, no, I mean, talking about the thing with Jake and his son and getting them, his name's Will. And Will was stoked about that. Was like, it feels so weird that I'm signing and having a photo with Jake from Cap Down's son. He was like, I want to have a photo and get his dad to sign something for me, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was almost like you were the cool guy in that situation,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and working with them, it happens so often, dude. Where we'd show up at places in Europe and but especially in the UK, and stage managers, venue owners, in-house bookers, front of house people, lighting engineers, all of that kind of stuff. It would happen all the time. People would come up to me and go, "Are you that guy from that band?" And I'd go, yeah. And then they'd tell me about how when they saw us play,
they'd punish you.
And a lot of the time, not punishing, just a kind of I reckon that whole scene was what inspired me to do what I'm doing now.
Dude,
now the whole industry is being run by ska punks,
I've been in situations like that, and people have gone oh my God, professional people on major tours who know what they're doing have come up and gone, Lightyear totally changed my life, man. Thanks so much. And I'm just a bit that's like someone saying to me oh, thanks so much for you winning the lottery. But it is amazing how that kind of that scene has spread its sort of wings with other people as well, and I think that's the thing, during that time, and it's that old theatrical thing, the show must go on. People, it would be like, oh shit, the PA's blown up, okay, get another one. Okay, do an acoustic show. Okay, the first band's dropped out. Okay, I'll make some songs up with someone else in a band. There was nothing. And that was all learning their chops, you know what I mean? That was all sound engineering. How many people
Absolutely,
Bars, yeah, he became a sound engineer, went around the world, Friendly Fires, loads of bands. That came from that scene, And again, maybe I'm fucking blowing smoke up my own arse and our arses, but I do feel that's probably true because those people are in those situations,
Mate, 100% is. One of my friends, he was the front of house person for Dry the River and was sort of the person that got me the gig. Even though I was friends with them, he was the tour manager as well, so he was the person that gave me the job. But he came up working in Liverpool Academy as a sound engineer and would just try and hop in the van with punk bands to learn how to do his thing. And he had a mohawk and, the whole 9 yards kind of thing. But yeah, he now tour managing bloody Alison Moyet and OMD and the Wombats.
Even now, I love that the music industry, as tough as it is and how it can be unfair to a lot of people working out there, I love the fact that you can do that for whoever you are. You know, you can get you can do a bit of work experience, you know, maybe learning monitors for a gig, or you can set up a vocal PA, and then you can, you know, it's almost like how keen you are, how much not a dick you are, and how much your knowledge you have. If you have those things and how positive you are, you can do really well in the music industry, I think. And I think that we learnt those things from being on tour, you know, in our scene.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like it's interesting, because the last 3 years I've had a normal job, and it's the first time I've had a normal job.
Can we speak about what it is?
I'm genuinely not allowed to.
Okay. No worries. I'm probably kind of not. I'm not really supposed to. I don't know. I run a venue like with an awesome team of people, but
yeah, I'd never had. I mean, it is a strange thing, but yeah, I signed an NDA to say I wouldn't say who I work for.
Cool. Yeah. That makes it sound like MI5.
It's something like that. Yeah, just spy stuff. But I'd never had a job interview before. I'd never had a proper...
Oh, what, before this job?
Before this job.
Wow.
I'd had like agency work where I'd work in factories and stuff, and had this job. Me and Nick used to have jobs together, working in factories and working in this car park driving in Southampton. There's the big container ships that have all the cars on that are being imported.
Yeah.
We used to have a job where we go in there and drive all the cars off. And we could do that off when we weren't touring because it was just agency work. So I always did that until I became kind of self-employed doing guitar tech stuff, and then just did that for ages. But so I never had to have a proper job interview. And then going into this job interview, I was absolutely shitting myself because I didn't know, do I have any skills? I don't know what my skills are.
Yeah.
And then
I don't, if you came for an interview and I was the interviewer, I don't know how well you would do.
Mate, here's the thing. I smashed it.
Did you?
Yeah, I did really well, dude. And I got the job.
I just feel like if you were being like your honest self to the point, you know. But then, actually, this is the thing, isn't it? People know you're genuine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I do. There is a massive part of me that has to just be quiet when I'm at work because I've spent 20 years arsing around with musicians and crew members.
Where do you think you would be if you hadn't have got in that van on that Link 80 tour?
Genuinely, probably. So lots of my friends growing up. So I grew up on a council estate in the New Forest in Southampton.
I didn't know that. I did for part of my life as well.
And I do think that as a side note, that's a part of a lot of the reason I felt distance from some. There were lots of middle class people in the ska punk scene, and there were some working class people, but there weren't as many. I think it's even worse now. There's no working class people in music. Lots of people I literally who were my best friends growing up have been kind of in and out of prison, and you know, now they still live on the same council estate, and they've got 5 kids. And
I never knew this about you, man. This is crazy.
Yeah, so I think by virtue of my mum is really liberal and always kind of, she grew up in a very working class situation, as did my dad. But my dad, in later life, my dad has really opened up and become a much more easy to get along with person who's kind of in control of his own emotions and his own feelings and all those kind of things that kind of, I guess, to generalize, kind of older boomer mentality kind of people often struggle with, men. But my dad left when I was kind of young, and my mum looked after me and my brother, but she was so intent on us breaking that cycle and not being in that situation. So she was always very open to us pursuing our own interests and really supportive and all that kind of stuff.
I think sorry to interrupt, but I grew up on an estate for a part of my life, and you know, single parent family. You know, my dad Mum, dad met whatever, and my dad was a tour manager for a band called Arthur Lee and Love, and
I remember this story.
Yeah, and he was also the agent for the Doors and all this. So he was like heavily involved.
You met Hendrix, right? It's something about Hendrix.
Yeah. He knew. Well, I've got a photo of him and my dad on stage doing the peace sign together, which is like the most awesome thing in the world. And my dad's awesome, and I've connected with him later on in life, which is brilliant. I love him. He's a very, very interesting guy, and he's writing a book at the moment about his life. He was in the Marine Corps, and he was fostered. He was in foster care for a lot of his early life. Didn't know who his
he's
dad
American,
was.
right?
He's American, yeah.
Yeah.
And but then obviously with my mum, we were struggling, and so we ended up living on an estate. And I think there's something like, and I don't mean this in a bad way to anyone else, but I feel like when you've come from that and somebody calls you middle class, it's a little bit of an insult. Do you find that?
100%, dude. Like, me and my girlfriend talk about it all the time. She also grew up in a working class situation. I don't want to be that kind of person who is kind of snooty about class, but it is in me. I know it's in me, and I can't. I'm not going to lie and say it isn't there. Like, I do.
Did you struggle?
And nowadays, I have kind of I'm just about to buy a house, and I'm 43. I didn't ever think I'd ever be in a situation where I'd be able to buy a house. I don't have any family money. I don't have inheritance. I don't have any of that, and I've never worked a normal fucking job. So
that's amazing, man.
Of course,
congratulations.
I had to thank you, man, and it feels really good, and I feel really proud to say that I'm able to buy a house.
How were your family financially on the estate? Were you poor ever, or?
Yeah, we were poor, but it was kind of when my dad was there, we were probably one of the families doing better because my dad had a good job. Then when my dad left, not so good. And my mum was sectioned when I was 12 or 13.
Oh, man. Shit, I didn't know that. I'm sorry about that.
For a number of months. And it was kind of rough, but like we didn't have, I didn't have a guardian basically for a while. Like my nan would come over to look after us a little bit and people would drop in and that kind of stuff. And my dad would pop over, but we didn't have.
You were 12, did you say?
Yeah, I was 12. My brother was 4, or maybe I was 13 and my brother was 15 or something like that, around that age. But it kind of, from that point onwards, got a lot more difficult. But I think that's the kind
of this you don't want keeping in at the end. Let me know, man.
Oh, it's all good. I am an open book, Charles.
Okay, not a good book like
certainly no Andy McNabb. Bravo
Andy
to
McNabb.
Which actually improves with every read.
It's a bit of Alan Partridge there.
Yeah, I feel like you're not really aware of class or how poor you are until you're in your teens.
Yeah.
Or certainly I wasn't really aware.
Because you're not, you don't, I guess when you start to have money and want money and need money, that's when you're like...
Yeah, it was going to secondary school and seeing that like kids had new shoes and new clothes and stuff, and I kind of, like, I had new stuff sometimes, but I'd wear my brother's hand-me-downs a lot and that kind of stuff. And
yeah, I remember my mum's awesome as well, but
your mum is awesome. Shout out Chaz's mum.
Thank you.
Love your mum.
Sheila. I remember my mum crying quite often because she couldn't afford to feed me and her, and we couldn't afford to heat the house. We, where's the rent coming from? Not for like ever, but there was like probably like 3 years, I think, where it was like that. And, I was comforting my mum. She didn't have a bed, so she was sleeping on the floor, and I was like, why are you sleeping on the floor? And I was probably about the same age as you, actually, at about 11 or 12. And, formative years, kind of just before teen or whatever. And when you go through that and you do see people, like you say, you see people with cars and you see people, and I don't mean it bad, but you do look and you go, wow, I never had, a council house is very different than a new build,
Mm.
And I remember walking in, but the funny thing is, at the same time, my mum had managed to get me a government-assisted place to a pretty high-end private school.
Okay.
And I was going to school with like Edwina Curry's daughters, MP's daughters, ambassadors' sons,
Mm.
And
so is that why you're such a wanker?
It is why I'm such a wanker.
Yeah.
You've got it. That's the.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, a posh wanker. But and there was there was a few nice kids there, but a lot of them were I'll be honest, were pretty fucked up because, as well. And they had loads of money, So, but some of my friends on that estate, my friend the other day got in contact and he's like, I've just come out of jail and do you want to see my DBS, I was like, yeah, man, and he sent me his DBS and it was like drug dealing, heroin shipments, I think there was like kidnapping. And he was finding it funny, like there's that element. I think it's almost like council estate humor, where I'm just not taking the police seriously because I stopped taking teachers seriously because they were fucking arseholes to me. So they lost me there as a teacher 10 years ago, and I just see the police as that, and it's just a joke. And I'm in jail, but it's a joke, And I don't know, seeing that side and seeing the private school kind of side. Just when I was struggling with a lot of bullying and real fucking nasty bastards, like getting into punk and skating, just dragged me out of that fucking hellhole. Do you know what I mean? And
that was 100% it for me too. Like it was music.
That's amazing, man. Yeah,
music and skating just kind of gave me an outlet to not go down the path that all my friends were going down.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm like fucking Notorious B.I.G., coming out the Bronx or, I'm not sure where Biggie.
You
was
are
from,
a good rapper, though.
I've got a really good intro for a bit of rapping intro for Layla for the Sonic Boom 6 episode. So, but okay. I'm not gonna do it now. But I've been thinking about it for weeks. I'm so excited. But yeah, I do think I do not know where I'd be without punk, skating, and the scene. And it's cliche and it's cheesy. I do honestly think I'd be in jail or dead, or working in a camping hire shop that sells tents, which I didn't get the job for as soon as I left Lightyear.
Yeah, I think likewise. My brother, who's a couple of years older than me, he kind of left the estate earlier than I did and moved into Southampton, lived with my nan, and he got a job in a bank and just kind of worked there. And I think I probably would have done something similar, but my brother...
Can your nan skate?
She's dead now.
Okay, then that's a no.
So I think no.
Okay, yeah.
But they do say heaven is a half pipe. Huh? So who knows? Maybe she's up there. Peace, Nan.
What's her name?
Her name was Brenda.
Big up, Brenda. I hope you're shredding.
Yeah, she was a great woman. But I feel like I probably would have followed suit, but something probably in a factory. I'll just be when I was younger, I was really interested in woodwork as well, and I still am. But I would have probably got an apprenticeship, I think, and been like a carpenter or something like that.
I think this is the thing again, and I glorify. My thing was punk and skating, and in council estates and stuff, neurodiversity. And having some of those family challenges that people have on council estates, fucking what chance do some of those kids have, man? They have zero chance, in my opinion. Like if you're growing up with autism and you're growing up with ADHD, you look at how many people in jail have ADHD and autism and stuff. It's so high. And like, I've worked with kids like that, and you're just like, I thought I was going to save every single kid, with this place I worked. And I think there was one moment where this kid was like, I would, consider he'd been, in inverted commas, saved or whatever, like kind of divert his path. But it's these little, not butterfly effect, but these little tweaks of course, of like, okay, I could do this and this will get me slightly off that path of, drugs and violence and stealing and, all those things that are looked at differently. This is deep, man. This is like way too deep. I thought this was going to be really silly.
Yeah, what you're talking about is focus, isn't it? And I know my mum has said to me that from the moment she got me a guitar, it was like just a light switch went on, and I was just a completely different person and was just really focused. And before that, she found it hard to get me to focus on anything. And
you're my favorite guitarist.
Oh, thanks.
You are, dude. You are. You fucking are.
Really?
And like, so I struggle a lot with guitar. Like I I can't practice. I would say I've never practiced because I can't focus long enough to practice unless I've, got my ADHD meds, and then that's like 2 days gone. But but I remember on my album and stuff, you did something, and I've never seen somebody play guitar. It was like it was directly connected to your being and how you were feeling. It was like Ghostbusters when the guy's trying to shoot Slimer, in that room in the hotel. It was just pure, like, you were interpreting almost involuntary, like something there. And obviously there's a music theory knowledge base there going on that's probably so ingrained you just know what to do instantly. I imagine that's what, quality musicians are like. But I find it absolutely fascinating that you can do that. And it's like,
Thanks, man.
it is like a switch. And it is like, I relate to what you're saying and what your mum said, because you're probably unaware of this, but then you go and you're in guitar mode, you're in creative mode, and you're not in anything else mode. There's nothing else going on apart from that.
Yeah, it does make sense to me a little bit. I don't, definitely when I was young, I played guitar for fucking, I don't know, man, like 8 hours a day. Like, no exaggeration, probably 8 hours a day from like 12 to 20. And I went to music school, and that's an aside, but maybe it'd be interesting to some people, I don't know. But that plays into what we were saying about my upbringing. My mum got me a audition at a music school without telling me, because she knew I wouldn't want to go. I would just say no. And then one day she just kind of woke me up and said, "You're not going to college today. I'm taking you up to Guildford. You're going to do an audition for a music school."
What?
And I was like, okay. I haven't practiced anything or whatever, but she like liaised with them, and I showed up, and they were like, "So we understand you haven't like prepared anything, so just play some music." So I just jammed with the dude, and they let me in. And
that's amazing.
It's
that's
pretty
so
mental,
cool.
yeah, because I just had no. And I think going back to the autism thing, I think that's all kind of part of it. Yeah, my mum just kind of forced my hand in this really kind of loving way.
Yeah. That's an amazing thing to do as a mum. That's some pretty solid parenting.
Yeah, top tier mumming, I think. But yeah, I went to music school, and there just played guitar all day. I was too scared to go to the like meetings where you meet people to live in a house with, so I lived in the YMCA, and just played guitar all day, every day, for 8 hours at music school, and then I would leave and go home and play for another 8 hours at home.
Fucking hell.
Like nowadays, I don't pick a guitar up unless it's just to like write a song, or I record and stuff and write music all the time.
You've done all that, like
kind of, but like I feel like there's always more to do. I feel like I know what I'm shit at, and I know I could be way better, but it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear people say that they think I'm good at playing, because that's really the only thing I feel like I have ever been good at.
But all these things that are like the perpetual puzzles, like chess and guitars and instruments and Street Fighter 2, it's like skating. A nollie flip looks like a kick flip unless you don't know,
Yeah. I think that probably comes from the scene as well, in some part, because definitely having worked now as a tech and a tour manager in other scenes, bands are so much more competitive, and I feel like the scene is responsible for the kind of modesty that I feel like a lot that you were speaking about, because that scene was very much like, don't have an attitude. That's like rule number one is don't have an attitude. And if you did have an attitude, that became known very quickly by everyone in the scene, and do you know what I mean? So you had to learn to kind of ingratiate into this world where no one was above each other, and you had to fit in by respecting one another and by building each other up, not tearing up. Whereas other scenes, people are really competitive about their music. I've done it. They'll openly say they are better than other bands and all of that kind of stuff, and it's like that's always hit me.
Like
I feel gross when people say that stuff. But.
So what musically are you doing now anyway?
Man, I'm doing so much, and it's sort of annoying. So I'm working on 6 albums at the same time.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 100% serious. After Howard's Alias, I guess most people listening to this would not know anything I've done after Howard's Alias, even if they've heard of Howard's Alias. I've done loads of music and like played loads of different kind of projects. And then about 10 years ago, I decided to stop playing my own music live. And I didn't really tell anyone. I mean, I don't even know if I've ever really told. I don't know if I've told you this. I don't know if I've told anyone really specifically.
I don't think so. I remember seeing you play an acoustic show in London. In Brighton, and I've spoken about this before. And there was an American guy. You were just like, sometimes I feel like being entertaining on stage, and sometimes I do not. And tonight I do not. And the American guy went, "You just do what you feel, man. You do what you feel," like this. And you know, I love Americans, but they have that loud, positive. But you just went, "I know, and I am." And it was so fucking good, man. I'm not doing it any justice, but it was great timing. But yeah, sorry, you did tell me. No, I don't think you did tell me, actually. So
I just kind of like, it was maybe like 2016, somewhere around then. I'd started having really bad panic attacks on stage, and like having panic attacks and stuff had been a part of playing live for a long time. But back in the day, particularly, you know, early noughties, Howard's Alias times, I wasn't aware even really that's what that was. I just thought, oh, I shake and feel really nervous and throw up before a show. That must be normal in some way, or it's not normal and I'm mad and let's move on. You know, there was never any real thought put into it. But so around that time, I just decided to take a break from playing live because it was causing me too much stress. And then I've just never gone back to it. And I did a bunch of playing for other people and like still playing live, playing for other people, played for you and done a bunch of stuff like that. But always just carried on writing and releasing records when they're done or whatever. But
do you miss performing?
I do, but I've been able to like keep one foot in it from playing with other people. So that kind of scratches that itch a lot of the time. But also as the years have gone on, so that since COVID especially, I released a bunch of records around COVID time, instrumental stuff you were talking about at the start.
It's all brilliant, man. There's some fucking great music there.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So I did this project with Will from Creeper around COVID time called Salem, and we did a couple of EPs, and that went really, really well. But because he's already kind of has this status within the music industry already, so both the EPs were released on a major label and all that kind of stuff. But that kind of came to an end a few years ago. I don't know if it's necessarily an end. We haven't really ever talked about it, but he just got busy doing his stuff. And I was kind of like, felt like I needed to do something that was different. So I went and got a job, and I only really planned to stay there probably for 6 months or a year, just until we'd picked the band back up or did something. And then that just hasn't really happened for whatever reason, number of reasons. And so I just started writing for a bunch of different stuff, just kind of compiling all of this music. And now I have all these different projects and all these albums in various states of probably like 4 or 5 of them are pretty much done. But I don't know, the idea of releasing music nowadays seems futile. I can't bring myself, like, I don't like social media. I don't like
same
streaming. I don't like, I mean, even the Salem thing, like we had a song on one of the Scream movies.
Wow.
And I mean, which is amazing. I'm not like trying to pass that off as I'm too cool for it. Like I was really, really stoked to be part of that. Weirdly, that came through Link 80 as well.
Was it their sax player maybe?
It was their original guitar player, Matt. He was the director of the movie. And he was looking for a song and had reached out to some of the other members of Link 80 and said, don't suppose you know any new bands that kind of sound a bit like this? And they'd said, well, yeah, Matt from Howard's Alias has this new band and it kind of sounds like that. And then he listened to one of the songs and was like, this is perfect. Got in touch and we put it on the movie. And amazing experience and like so cool. But I mean, that song now, in comparison to big artists, the numbers are nothing. But in comparison to everything else I've done, it has quite literally millions more plays than anything else.
So were you a co-writer on that?
Yeah. So we just split everything down the middle with that. And like through the record label stuff and all that kind of stuff, I made a bit of money. That was cool at the time. It got me through that period. But like in terms of streaming, it's had, I don't know, millions of plays, and I've made no money from that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've made any money.
No.
And it's like, faced with that, it's like, oh, what's the point? Because I'm not playing live, so I can't sell. And also, like, gone are the days when we used to go out with boxes of CDs from Household Name. We'd all be trying to sell CDs at the gigs. People aren't buying music at shows.
I think the only other thing that music and performing now is for music and performing for you, and this is where I'm at with it, because I can't stand social media. I'm terrible at it. Can I build up a following to my solo stuff or whatever? No, and I don't mean this in like a negative way at all. I just feel like I'm now at a point where I'm doing music solely for music's sake. And if I may do an open mic, or there may be some, good open mic, or I may do a little gig. I played with Random Hand the other day and it was awesome, but I can't even finish songs now because my brain just stops. But, it's molding into something, morphing into something else for me. And hopefully it'll be I'm starting to see a positive side for sure. Like it's like, okay, Chaz, you've got to keep it fucking real, man. Like you should be, it's like, I'm skating for skating's sake, man. I'm not skating to be cool. I'm not where, and it's like, okay, why are you performing? Why are you doing this music? It's putting that focus back on me, because it won't be anything else ever. Like my music will never be anything. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It will never, if I'm very, very, very lucky, it'll get on a film or something. If I'm very, very lucky, I'm never going to be playing sold out tours. No one's going to take me on a big sold out tour, like a big artist, because I'm not going to pull anyone else in. Nobody knows who I am. Like there's no benefit for them to do it. So I'm never going to go on a massive, amazing tour in arenas. So it's like, why am I doing this? So, and that's a good thing.
That's the question, isn't it? I think I've spent the last few years, I've spent the last 20 years trying to answer that, really, but I think the last few years especially, I've got to this place now where I'm just really comfortable making music literally for myself. Most of it I haven't played to anyone, not even my girlfriend. It's like I'm not playing it to anyone, doing it purely for the love of it. And nowadays it's much more about recording as well. I love recording music and the art of production, and I've got really into producing and mixing, and I do that for other people sometimes.
I think, that there also comes a point where you're like, am I just doing this because I've done it for 30 years? Like, am I, Lightyear have just got in the studio and done some demos and stuff, and I'm actually like, okay, there's something in this new song, like this little hook I'm excited about, and which is cool. So, but you are, when you've done something so long, you're just like, am I just doing this because I think
it just becomes a compulsion.
Identity? Yeah.
Yeah. I think there definitely is that part of it, but I still love music, and I'm writing all this stuff for people in bands, because this is the thing as well. I remember years ago when Howard's Alias was a band, reading on like Punktastic or somewhere, someone wrote a comment about me, and I don't know if you've ever had this where you've read something that someone's written about you and it's just stuck with you forever.
Yeah, absolutely,
But someone wrote like, oh, Matt from Howard's Alias would do really well if he could just stick to one thing for 5 minutes. And I used to really take that to heart and be like, oh God, well, perhaps I just need to just write the same music over and over again. But now as an adult, I'm like, well, that's just not who I am. That's not what I have ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
And trying to understand who I am in the world. It all comes back to, like, nowadays, releasing music and being a musician is seen as something to aspire to, but what that means, or rather the context around that, is like being successful financially and famous. And I feel like I perhaps thought I wanted that when I was younger, because that's what I thought, that's what you think you should want.
Yeah.
And whereas now as a grown-ass man, I'm like, I'm actually really just comfortable with writing all of this music all the time, and I don't really care if anyone else ever even hears it. It's the doing of it that I enjoy, and it's the completing it that I enjoy. Of course, it's nice to release something and have people give you good feedback about it. I like doing that, but it does seem a little futile in the sense that, like, how do I promote myself as a 43-year-old that's got 6 albums for 6 different projects that don't sound the same?
I feel like we probably look old to people now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Are we old? Are we old?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit old.
Yeah. So
I think I'm a cool old person, but I'm definitely old.
I mean, I think you're fucking very cool, but like, I'm not sure. I have no concept of, like we're looking older, man. I'm bald. You're getting a little bit grey.
I'm fully grey, man. Look at me.
You're fully grey. Like, I mean, I think you look handsome as ever, but you know what I'm saying? It's strange because I think once we have done these things, once we have played these festivals, once we have been part of this amazing scene, what are we going to do? So we're going to go back to having 5 people at the gigs. We're going to go back to
that's the thing. I don't want that. I don't want to play first on. I've done that, and it's not placing myself above it. I just have done it like 1,000 times, and I don't want to do that ever again. Not interested. That's not fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
Neither artistically or financially.
Yeah.
So why would I do it? And it's kind of this reckoning of, I guess this gets to the crux of my point with this, is like, I've really had to think about what is music to me? Why do I want to do it? Do I want to do it if money and popularity is not the driving force? Do I want to do it if the respect of my peers is not the driving force? All of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, am I happy sat in my spare room with my recording gear and all my guitars and a big shelf full of pedals? Is that good enough for me?
Autism.
And but I'm realizing that it is. That is ultimately what I like from it. And
do you know what that makes me want to do?
What?
That makes me go, I have to hear what Matt's writing now. That's doing my head in. Like, he's got this gold mine of music that I'm never going to hear.
Mate, I mean, your listeners may be interested to hear. I've written some ska music.
Recently?
Yeah, man.
That's fucking great.
I've got like
how can we hear it?
I got like 6 or 7 tunes that I've been working on.
What, like you've just written? Like...
So last year, 2024, I reconnected with Adam from Link 80.
Amazing, yeah.
Who plays in this band Omnigon now.
Top bloke, yeah.
We've stayed in touch the whole time via social media and stuff. But he was coming to the UK with his band.
I remember touring with Link 80 and Adam he's straight edge, right? Is he still straight edge?
Yeah, still straight edge.
Yeah, so he was really funny because a lot of straight edge people obviously didn't want to get involved with what we were doing. But I remember Adam kind of watching it all, and I think he kind of like maybe got it and found it quite funny. He loves the chaos, I think. He's like one of those, he's not a boring sober person. He's like a fun sober person, Yeah, and I think there's loads of like amazing stuff, but I think boring, oh, fucking hell, here we go. Like, I think straight edge can be quite serious. I think sobriety, or I can't even say it, let alone whatever, but I think being sober is like, I don't think it's that boring, because I think sober people would argue drunk people are very fucking boring and hungover people are very boring, which I agree with. But I think there's elements of hardcore that is quite boring because it's literally telling you what to do, and that's the irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but I don't think Adam was
I should add, I've been sober for 5 years, and that's
fucking amazing.
And I am a boring sober person.
You're so boring, man.
I don't want to go out. I don't want to talk to you. I want to be at
just
home.
end the conversation.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
So I saw a post saying he was coming to the UK, and I messaged him saying they were playing in Salisbury, which is not too far from me. So I was like, brilliant, I'll come to the show. And made a joke saying I'll make an exception to my I don't go to gigs policy, and I'll come to your show. And then he was like, how about instead of that, you just play guitar in all of the gigs? And I was like, fuck yeah, that sounds loads of fun.
So you did it?
Yeah, so I went out. We played like 5 gigs, and it was supporting Call Me Malcolm. Have you heard them?
Yeah, man, they're fucking great.
Like a newer ska punk band.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't know ska punk still existed. I just...
Yeah.
I just completely and utterly turned my back on it. Not in a bad way, just like... I've turned my back on everything. I don't listen to anything.
People like Paul from B Sharp who like
yes,
and like Marty, like they're like the curators of the scene, and you know, they have like such vast knowledge, and because they've spanned that scene, you know. So I was talking to Paul the other day about Digger, you know, and Powerbait, and he has that knowledge of all that, but he's also part of the newer scene, you know. Like
he does all the shows at the New Cross Inn, right?
He does, yeah, and he's great. And I think, there's definitely that scene, isn't there, still going? And there's loads of people actually who have no idea who my band is or whatever. But that's great.
And that's the thing. The strange thing was, so going out on the shows, Call Me Malcolm were Howard's Alias fans. Their singer Luke, I think his name was, he was saying that he was a Howard's Alias fan, and like it was kind of cool reconnecting with that. We played with a couple of, but there was that band 3DB's Down. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
It turns out they're still playing. We played a gig with them in, I don't know if it was Canterbury or Brighton or somewhere like that, somewhere that area of the world. But yeah, it was really fun to go out and just play these shows, playing this like kind of reconnecting with this scene that I hadn't been connected with for such a long time.
Yeah.
And in a very low pressure environment, because we were first on, I was just playing guitar for Adam's band. It was only fun. That was the vibe of the whole thing, was just, let's all just have fun. And it was a bunch of dudes in their 40s in a hire car sleeping in travel lodges together. But it was so fun. And I kind of came back from that, like having to, like learn the tunes and stuff. You know, there's like techniques to playing ska music on the guitar that I think is missed a lot of the time. It's sort of thought of as stupid music, but playing ska is really difficult to play well on the guitar. And
yeah, I think Josh from the Skints does that kind of beat that thing quite well, you know?
So good, yeah. Just you have to be kind of very robotic, but also completely in sync and feel wise, like really rhythmic and really soulful, but being able to do that just exactly the same every time, and having
that's underrated, I think, with ska as well.
That's the whole thing with ska music. It's about the whole. It's not about you being some virtuoso guitar player or drummer or whatever it is. It's about the whole music moving people.
But that's great, isn't it? Even like the unity of that as musicians is, you know, the bass player from the Skints, John. Yeah. You know, like, amazing, you know, where player, John and like, but you know, it's about the bass, you know. But then if the bass, if Josh isn't there, you know, with his guitar, where the fuck is John on his own? You know, like
yeah, absolutely.
And then the drums, and I love that element of ska. I love ska so much, and it's such, people think it's so lame. Loads of people think it's so lame, and like I so fucking love it still, man. You know, I still do. I'm really excited to. I want to hear this stuff you've got.
Yeah, well, so this was the thing. Just to tie that up, it was I came.
Can I do a
off
bar
that
on
tour.
it? Can I do a bar of lyrics on it?
I don't know if you're good enough. Really, it's difficult.
You're just like, no fucking way, dude. No way. Like that involves like dealing with you more than this, and this is going on too long.
I finished that tour and just came home and was like, I'd been listening
to... Just move on now.
Just aggressively moving on. So I came back from that tour, I'd played ska music, reconnected with that, and was really like, this is really fun. And then I just started having some ideas of like ska songs, and like I write a lot of songs when I'm walking, come up with melody ideas and that kind of stuff, and then kind of flesh it out later and add chords and stuff later. But I'd started just coming up with ideas, and I had a song that was probably a few years old that I intended to be like a rock song or something. And then I had the idea of making it like a ska song, but kind of in a kind of two-tone vibe rather than a third wave ska vibe. But yeah, so I just started writing loads of ska music. I've written 6 or 7 songs, and kind of I was actually spoke to Nick Horn from Howard's Alias a few weeks ago,
Brilliant.
Sent him a couple of demos and said, like, I've written these songs and I've got some sort of horn ideas for a couple of the songs, and it wouldn't feel right to
not include
to make ska music and have horns on it without Nick playing on it. So I was like, would you be up for playing on it?
So Nick got an invite, did he?
Yeah, so Nick's got an invite, yeah.
Yeah, someone else hasn't.
Yeah, well, the thing is about, you just have to be able to,
play an instrument.
No, you've just got, it's more about the sort of being a dickhead thing we were talking about. Like, it's tough to be, especially with a fictional project where we're never going to be in the same room. You really need to be a good person. But who knows if I'll ever release it? I don't know. I might do. I'll send you a couple of tracks as long as you.
Just say, I would honestly, seriously, I'd love to hear it. And if you do it, send it over, and then just like send it over in like a WAV file, and then just like the second verse, just leave blank.
Just leave a little blank hole.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because I think that would be good for the song.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's difficult, isn't it, though? Because the thing is, my music it's quite highbrow, isn't it? And whereas
some would say too
Chaz,
highbrow.
You're kind of sort of gutter music, isn't it? Sort of. Do you know what I mean?
Like working class.
No, not like working class. Just like
real,
like thick.
Look, I'm gonna wrap it up.
Cool, man.
So I think, firstly, I've got a few things. Okay, I think track 4 on one of your things is called Choc Binoc. Okay, on your Bandcamp, yeah.
Yes.
Why?
Because it came from the shortening of chocolate binoculars.
And what are they?
I saw it somewhere online. I can't remember what it was.
So, my son Dylan calls Pano chocolates.
It must have been you. Did you post it online at some point?
I think I did, yeah. And he calls them chocolate binoculars.
Yeah, and I just thought it was really funny. I saw it online somewhere and thought it was really funny, and I'd call the song Choc Binoc. I've got a funny picture somewhere, Chaz, of me and you last time I was drunk with you, and we went to a party in Brighton. You were naked, and lots of people at the party, I don't think they knew what to do with that.
I totally forgot about this till you've just said.
And I was wearing a full-on raincoat, and I pulled the hood up, and I've got this photo of me sort of looking like Kenny from South Park, and you completely naked. And
Can you share that with me, please?
The two extremes of of party,
autism and ADHD.
Of party, exactly.
Dude, I remember this. Wasn't it in like an insanely small flat?
Yeah, it was in some tiny flat after a gig in Brighton, and Sam Duckworth was there as well.
That was the night I called Jake from Capdown.
Yeah,
one of them.
The other time was on stage in Derby.
I know, dude. Fuck.
Because I felt so uncomfortable. I would like to say, if Jake's listening, that I stopped playing the guitar and hid behind the amp because I didn't want to be part of it. So.
Oh my God. Band test. Okay, I'm going to start and doing this with everyone that comes on. Yeah, I'm going to say a band, and you've got to say, if you remember them, where they're from. Okay.
I'm going to be bad at this.
I'll start with an easy one. Okay, Shooting Goon.
Shooting Goon were a band from Cardiff, good friends of ours.
Great band.
Big up Matt Red and
totally.
Tom Hall.
Paul. They were nice. They were fucking nice guys, man. Like Ad 7, it was like they had a similar thing going on. Hug Lorenzo. I got no idea, mate. Never heard of them. Up your own arse, aren't you? Like, you're in this band, you're up your own arse. You don't even know these bands, mate.
Yeah, well, when the other bands were playing, I was in the dressing room thinking I was better than them.
I know. You were in your own dressing room.
Yeah.
One more. Why do ska bands always have names of, like, people? men or women in it? Like
I don't know. I really wish I hadn't.
Billy's. Oh shit! You did it too.
Yeah, Howard's Alias is such a shit name for a band. I
actually don't associate. I associate the you with the band, not the band name with you, which is great.
Yeah, it does sort of work that way sometimes. I think Biffy Clyro is a shit band name, but you sort of think it's cool because they're cool.
Okay, I'm going to go back to one you may get. I'm going to do you a good one here. I'm going to do you one. Farce.
Farce. I don't know where they were from. They were like a Moonscar band, right?
I think so. I mean, I know them. They're great lads, and fucking they're a cool band. But I can't remember if they were Moonscar. But
yeah, I never came across them in real life.
So that's 2 down. Okay, last one. Douglas.
Douglas were a kind of rock band, and were they Welsh as well, or were they from Derby?
Welsh.
I knew they were
from Wales. Yeah.
Yeah. We only played with Douglas a couple of times, I think.
They were fantastic, man.
Really good band.
Were really fucking underrated band.
Do you remember the band The Take from Wales?
Yes.
They were fucking brilliant.
They were brilliant. Yeah, great guys as well. They were really underrated.
Loved that band. Yeah, they were great. Their album was brilliant.
So your knowledge of the scene after, boasting for 3 hours.
It's mostly just confined to Wales. I know loads about the Welsh ska punk scene of the early noughties, but not a lot about anything else.
Matt, that's the end of the podcast. I don't know. I get. Like, it's
Did
funny.
Did we talk about anything?
I don't know, man. It's like a fucking TARDIS, like weird time thing. I'd never know. Some people have messaged going, "We really like it." I don't even know what's happens, but I would say that with Lou and Pete, I got a little bit emotional at the end. I was like, "I love you, man," and I love you. I feel like we're not going to do that.
Not so much with me.
Not so.
Why is that, do you think?
Mildly
you just
irritant.
don't like me as much?
No, I'm only joking, man. I think me and you, it's that drunk thing, isn't it? When you're drunk, I had a couple of beers with those ones. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this is straight up in the morning, and I'm kind of like, I've had a coffee, but it's like, But look, undrunk thing. I love you very much, man, and I'm very proud to have been involved and met you along the way on the road, and I'm so happy that we're still mates. That just feels so insincere, though. I feel like I'm just bullshitting now.
I think that's nice for me to hear. I love you too, and I am very pleased and proud to be your friend and to know you. I think 18-year-old me, who was getting on a Link 80 tour, would be over the moon to think in 25 years' time he'll be friends with Chaz from Lightyear.
Well, that's a lovely thing to say, man.
Yeah, we looked up to you a lot.
Oh God. We'll cut that out.
Quite literally, you're bigger than me.
No, but I think that's the lovely thing about this scene, just to end on it, is that, you can go on tour with people, and I've done it and gone, oh man, like a lot of the US bands, and ended up being mates with them, as opposed to just like, I fucking idol them, like 1 week we could be listening to a band, and then the next week we're on tour with them. And I don't know, I always, this term from those days kept sticking in my head. My friends are like are superheroes, because I would see them and we'd be chatting, and reading a book before stage or whatever. And then suddenly they get on stage and I'd just be like, holy fucking shit. Like, they're amazing. And then they'd just come off stage and they'd be back to normal again. It was a real Clark Kent sort of thing. And I definitely feel that about yourself. And I feel so truly honored to be part of that, man. And hopefully,
Thanks,
we'll do some music again in the future on our split EP that we're doing, where you for our new Scar project.
Yeah, sure.
I did this with Lou, the last one. I was like, yeah, we're doing a Captain Everything Lightyear split. And he's like, yep, we are. Okay, dude. Thanks so much,
Cool.
Matt. This isn't a soft hang-up. This is a real hang-up. I'm going to go.
The spinning ball, the turning wheel, to find some life now. Then there's you.
This episode of the Chaz Palmer Williams podcast was produced and mixed by Pete Fraser. Our theme music is Stop, I Want to Get Off by Big Finn, aka Matthew Reynolds, and can be found along with much more of his music on Bandcamp. You can follow me on Instagram or support this podcast on Patreon, where paid subscribers can also listen to exclusive bonus material, be part of a chat group and plenty more by searching Chaz Palmer Williams on those platforms. Subscribe wherever you get our podcast to make sure you never miss an episode. Leave a rating and review, which, as every podcast ever made, never tires of telling you, really helps. Thanks so much for listening. We're really trying to up this game, so catch you next time. See you later.